When you think about how our culture frames love, it's almost always presented as this kind of spontaneous magic trick.
Oh, absolutely. Like the classic rom-com meet cute.
Right. You get the swelling music, the fireworks, the whole nine yards. Society basically tells us that this overwhelming, all-consuming feeling is like the single most important thing a human being can ever experience.
Yeah, but that raises a pretty massive, glaring question, doesn't it?
It really does, because if it is so universally important, why does literally no one teach us how to actually maintain it? I mean, we train for decades for our careers. We go to school to learn basic math, but for the most critical interpersonal dynamic in the world, we're basically handed a fairy tale and told to just figure it out on the fly.
Which is wild when you actually say it out loud.
Totally. So today, we are taking everything you think you know about love, that whole romanticized, spontaneous definition, and we are completely dismantling it.
It's a necessary demolition, honestly. Relying entirely on that magic trick is a massive structural flaw, and it's exactly why so many relationships eventually just crash and burn.
Yeah.
I mean, when you build a house on a foundation of fleeting emotions, you really shouldn't be surprised when the walls start coming down at the first sign of bad weather.
Exactly. And our guide for this deep dive is someone who has spent a lifetime watching those houses collapse and, well, more importantly, helping people rebuild them. We're pulling from this incredibly insightful audio recording of a lecture by Dr. Arnold Nerenberg.
Right, the clinical psychologist.
Yeah, and he's about to turn 85 years old. He has been in private practice for over 50 years.
Wow, 50 years.
Yeah, half a century of sitting in quiet rooms, watching real people try and, very often fail to love each other. Okay, let's unpack this because his perspective is so different from what we usually hear.
It really is. Out of those 50 years of observation, he's developed this perspective that pushes back really hard against our modern sensibilities. His central thesis is that love is not merely an art, and it is definitely not just a feeling.
Not at all.
Right. It is a rigid, daily, highly structured discipline. And arguably the most fascinating paradigm shift in his whole approach is the reason for this discipline.
Yeah, this part blew my mind.
Because it isn't just about building connection. It is primarily designed to protect the people we love from our own worst impulses.
But before we can even touch the discipline, like the rigid daily practices he prescribes, the psychologist insists we have to clear the decks of our most deeply held cultural misconception.
We have to deconstruct the actual feeling of love.
Right. And he certainly doesn't deny that the feeling exists or that it's wonderful.
No, he acknowledges that initial crush phase perfectly. I mean, we've all experienced it. You're floating, you're obsessing.
You see someone from behind on the street, and your brain instantly convinces you it's your partner.
Exactly. Or you hear a random voice in a crowded cafe and think it's them. It's this all-consuming, beautiful state of being.
You feel totally invincible. But here's the paradox he presents, and he uses these incredibly absurd, kind of comical examples to prove how unreliable that state of being actually is.
Oh, I love these examples.
They're so good. He says, imagine you're standing there with the absolute love of your life, the person you adore more than anyone on the planet. But you desperately, urgently have to go to the bathroom.
Like emergency levels.
Right. In that exact specific moment while your body's in panic mode, do you actually feel love for your partner?
The answer is categorically no.
No.
You feel the biological imperative to find a restroom. That is literally the only thing occupying your consciousness.
Yeah, or he uses another deeply relatable example. Say you skip breakfast, it's well past lunchtime, your blood sugar is absolutely crashing, and you are having this massive protein craving.
We've all been there.
Right. In that moment of intense physiological hunger, the profound feeling of romantic love is completely absent.
It sounds almost too simple when he says it, but the logic really highlights a massive societal delusion.
Yeah, because if you base your fundamental definition of love purely on a feeling, then logically you'd have to look at your partner and say, I'm so sorry I fell out of love with you because I was really hungry.
Exactly, which highlights the absurdity of our societal blueprint. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the absence of a feeling does not mean the love has ceased to exist.
Right.
Biology, everyday stress, minor annoyances, a bad day at work, they all possess the power to temporarily wipe out the feeling. The feeling initiates the journey, sure, it's the initial spark, but it is entirely unequipped to sustain the journey because feelings are, by their very nature, transient biological states.
I was thinking about this dynamic like the starter motor in a car. The starter motor's only job is to get the massive engine turning over.
Right, it needs that huge jolt.
Exactly. It requires this huge, unsustainable jolt of electricity. And that is the crush phase, the infatuation. But once the engine is actually running, the starter motor physically disengages. You cannot drive a car cross-country on the starter motor alone.
It would burn out immediately.
It would. You have to rely on the engine, the fuel, the actual mechanics of the vehicle. And yet, when that initial jolt fades in a relationship, so many people completely panic.
They think the whole car is broken.
Yes. So if the feeling of love can literally be wiped out by a simple drop in blood sugar, why does society still accept the phrase, the feeling is gone, as like the ultimate unquestionable excuse to end a marriage?
Because we haven't been given an alternative vocabulary. If all you possess is the starter motor and the starter motor naturally turns off, your immediate assumption is that the car is dead.
Right.
When you're engaged in a bitter argument with your partner, when they're doing that one specific thing that drives you absolutely crazy, you do not feel love. In fact, you might actively resent them in that moment.
Oh, for sure.
And if feeling is your only metric for the relationship's validity, you abandon ship. This is exactly why Dr. Nerenberg insists we must build a psychological bridge across those inevitable moments when the feeling vanishes.
So if the feeling isn't reliable, what actually sustains the engine? This brings us to the core of what he calls the discipline. And it is surprisingly specific.
Very specific.
It isn't just some vague suggestion to, be nicer. It is a strict mental routine. He prescribes reciting a specific mantra to yourself internally 3 times a day, every single day for the rest of your life.
Which is a huge commitment.
It is.
Yeah.
And the words are, I love you, I adore you, I cherish you, I respect you.
3 times a day, every single day. I mean, it is a deliberate mental conditioning exercise.
Yeah.
During the recorded lecture, one of the seminar participants, a woman named Estella, makes this brilliant cultural connection. She observes that this mantra acts just like the old song Love Potion No. 9. It functions as a mental potion. But instead of trying to trick someone else into falling in love with you, you're actively administering it to yourself to keep your own mind firmly anchored on your loved one's side.
You're essentially brainwashing yourself, but in, the most constructive way possible.
Exactly.
And if you've spent any time navigating modern romance, you recognize how desperately we need this. Another participant in the lecture, this guy named Matthew, who the psychologist describes as this big, macho, motorcycle riding guy, he brings up how this discipline contrasts with modern dating apps.
Oh, this was a great point.
Yeah. He says we are actively trained by these platforms to expect constant, frictionless magic. So the second there is an issue, the second someone hits a minor speed bump, they just swipe to the next profile because the technology provides this illusion of infinite choice.
Right. And Matthew points out a crucial flaw in modern romance there. People bail quickly because they haven't spent a single day training for the actual discipline of a long-term dynamic.
No training at all.
They want the physiological reward without the heavy conditioning. And the most critical aspect of this conditioning, the fundamental reason you take this mental love potion 3 times a day, is to achieve a state the psychologist calls protecting your partner from yourself.
Let's pause on that because the idea of acting as your partner's bodyguard against your own mind is a really heavy concept to digest.
It is, but the psychologist points out a very hard universal truth here. Every single human being generates negative, cruel, or deeply uncharitable thoughts.
Oh, absolutely.
When you are annoyed or feeling defensive, awful things pop into your head. But he argues vehemently that those passing thoughts do not define who you truly are. They are often just byproducts of your genetics, your immediate mood, your stress levels, or even how you were spoken to as a child.
Just background noise, basically.
Yes. And true discipline is recognizing that if you let those unfiltered thoughts out, you will inevitably damage the person who is most vulnerable to you. Therefore, you must actively sacrifice your own momentary peace of mind, the sweet relief of just lashing out and venting, to swallow those thoughts. You protect them from your own darkness.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, though. Let me challenge that for a second. Let's say you are furious. Your partner has just crossed a boundary or done the exact thing you've asked them 100 times not to do.
Right.
You are seething. And the prescription is to sit there and silently recite, I love you, I adore you, I cherish you, I respect you. Isn't that just psychological denial? Aren't you basically gaslighting yourself and slapping a fake pageant smile over actual justified misery? Like, how is that remotely authentic?
The psychologist directly anticipates that exact pushback. His counter-argument is that reciting the mantra is absolutely not a lie because your momentary visceral anger is not the truest version of reality.
Okay, go on.
You didn't wake up that morning and consciously choose to be angry. You didn't choose to be triggered. That anger is an involuntary biological and emotional reaction passing through your nervous system. The baseline truth, the reality that you have committed to this person, that you deeply value their presence in your life, is the actual truth.
So it's about anchoring to the baseline.
Exactly. Reciting the mantra in a moment of fury is pulling your brain back to reality, not running away from it.
Okay, I see. So the anger is just a system alert flashing red on the dashboard, but the mantra is the actual operating system running in the background. You don't let the flashing light rewrite the core code.
That is a perfect mechanical way to look at it. Another participant, Robert, phrased the danger of ignoring this beautifully. He noted that without these very deliberate, rigid tools, we are all entirely capable of verbally nuking the people we love.
Verbally nuking, wow.
Right. Because we share intimately with our partners, we know exactly where their deepest insecurities and buttons are located. Without immense discipline, we will push those buttons simply to relieve our own internal tension during a fight.
But swallowing those toxic thoughts internally is one thing, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, you have to actually open your mouth and speak to your partner during a conflict. So how does this internal discipline work when you're actively engaged in an argument?
Well, this is where it gets tough.
Because the psychologist has a completely zero-tolerance policy for a lot of modern relationship advice here. He flat out dismisses the pop psychology mandate that you should, just be real or get it off your chest.
He doesn't just dismiss it. He calls the modern mandate to just be real a psychological and spiritual failure.
A failure. And we live in an era that absolutely worships the idea of speaking your truth. Unfiltered authenticity is treated as the highest moral good on social media and in pop therapy.
Oh, everywhere.
We are constantly told that if you feel an emotion, you must express it. Otherwise, you're repressing yourself and being toxic. It seems like there has to be a middle ground between raging at your partner with your unfiltered truth and just becoming a silent doormat who absorbs their bad behavior.
There is, and the middle ground he proposes is shifting the goal from being real to being respectfully real. What's fascinating here is the fundamental misunderstanding in our culture, which is viewing restraint as weakness.
Right.
Suppressing your raw, unedited emotional reaction isn't about being passive or being a martyr. It is actually the ultimate display of emotional strength. He compares the 3 times a day mantra to warfare training.
Warfare training.
Yes, you literally have to train your mind during peacetime when things are calm, so that when you are in the chaotic trenches of an argument and feel like you are being emotionally annihilated, you have the muscle memory to stop. You train so you can look at your partner even when you are furious and say, I love you, I adore you, I don't want to add fuel to this fire right now.
It is treating your words like loaded weapons. Getting it off your chest and screaming your unfiltered truth might feel amazing for exactly 3 seconds of adrenaline release, but then the fallout lasts for weeks. Or it permanently alters the foundation of trust in the relationship.
Absolutely.
He says point blank, love is not for the weak. It is only for the strong. And most people are simply too weak because they completely refuse to discipline themselves. They'd rather just throw the grenade to feel better and deal with the rubble later.
And this daily restraint handles the Tuesday night arguments over the dishes or, the way they load the dishwasher. But to unlock the absolute deepest, most profound level of connection, Dr. Nerenberg introduces a catalyst that most people spend their entire lives actively trying to avoid thinking about.
Yeah, this is the point in the deep dive where the lights go down a bit, because to truly love someone, to reach that highest tier of the discipline, he says you have to face a stark, unavoidable reality. You are going to die. And your partner is going to die. One of you is going to have to stand at the other's grave and bury them.
It sounds incredibly morbid on the surface, doesn't it? Almost counterproductive to romance. But his point is rooted deeply in the mechanics of human psychology. The human brain is wired to habituate.
We get used to things.
Exactly. We adapt to our surroundings, which means we naturally take the everyday presence of our partner for granted. We cannot maintain peak appreciation for something that feels permanent. So, he argues that actively visualizing the end of your partner's life, visualizing that permanent, gaping absence, is a required psychological practice to override that habituation.
That is an incredibly tough pill to swallow, to just sit there and vividly picture the moment they're gone and how desperately you would want just one more hug, one more mundane conversation.
It's hard work.
But when he explains it, he insists this isn't dark or pessimistic, it's just gravity. It is the factual reality of the human condition. And by bringing that ultimate scarcity into your daily awareness, it acts as a massive magnifying glass on your current appreciation. Suddenly, that intense annoyance you feel because they left their shoes in the hallway again completely evaporates. It gets instantly eclipsed by the profound realization that someday you would give anything in the world to trip over those shoes one more time.
You are leveraging existential dread to fuel immense present-moment gratitude. The brain requires the threat of scarcity to accurately assign value. But whenever you introduce a philosophy that demands this level of extreme self-sacrifice, suppression of anger, and unconditional commitment, we have to talk about the limits.
We definitely do.
We have to clearly define the boundaries of this discipline.
Because if we don't, there is a very real danger of this philosophy being misapplied to dangerous situations. Like, where is the line between practicing the noble, rigorous discipline of love and just becoming a victim in a toxic or abusive dynamic?
Oh, what?
When is it empirically okay to stop reciting the mental love potion and just pack your bags?
Well, the psychologist is remarkably clear on this boundary because capacity and safety are paramount. The discipline he's describing, the mantras, the swallowing of negative thoughts, the visualization of mortality, is explicitly designed for everyday relationship struggles.
Everyday struggles.
Right. He defines this as a dynamic where disagreements or friction are happening maybe 10% of the time, not 90% of the time. This is a toolkit for two relatively decent people who are just grinding through the exhausting realities of life together.
So it's medicine for the standard friction of being human, not a bandage for the trauma of being abused.
Precisely. During the lecture, a participant named Hugh shares a deeply personal, really harrowing story. He talks about a previous marriage that he describes as highly toxic and nightmarish.
Oh, wow.
And he tried everything, every therapeutic program and discipline to endure it. The marriage only finally ended when he was involved in a severe accident. He was electrocuted and hospitalized for a long time, which finally broke the cycle.
That is intense.
It is. And the psychologist uses Hugh's story to explicitly clarify the mechanics of the boundary. In cases of extreme toxicity, emotional or physical abuse, or infidelity, the discipline ends immediately. It is completely null and void.
So what does this all mean? Like, why does the mechanism fail so completely in those specific instances?
This raises an important question about safety, because the mental mantra requires a baseline of psychological safety to function as intended. The discipline is a social contract between two people. When one partner introduces abuse, or when infidelity shatters the foundational reality of trust, the contract is broken.
That makes total sense.
Right. If you try to administer the love potion to yourself in a genuinely abusive dynamic, the mechanism flips. It goes from being a tool of emotional strength into a tool of active self-harm. You're basically pouring pristine concrete onto a completely shattered foundation. Walking away is not a failure of discipline in those cases. It is the necessary, healthy response to a dangerous environment.
And he actually provides a specific phrase for that exact moment, too. When the boundary of safety or fidelity is crossed, you don't recite, "I cherish you" anymore. The phrase becomes, "I release you to your destiny, and I wish you well."
I release you to your destiny. It's incredibly powerful because it removes the consuming animosity, which protects your own peace, but it firmly and permanently closes the door.
Yeah.
True love, the kind he has observed working over 50 years, requires a person to hold two very intense, conflicting discomforts simultaneously. The daily grinding friction of dealing with a profoundly flawed partner and the terrifying existential dread of losing them permanently. But you can only hold those discomforts if you are standing on solid ground.
It really is a staggeringly comprehensive way to view our relationships. So to bring all of these threads together for you listening, if we truly internalize what Dr. Nerenberg is teaching, it flips the societal script entirely. Love is absolutely not the butterfly feeling you get when you lock eyes at a party. That is just the starter motor. Real love is the grueling, unglamorous mental discipline you practice when you are hungry, exhausted, and profoundly annoyed with the person sitting across from you.
Yeah.
It is making the active, daily choice to recite a mental love potion to brainwash your own mind into grace. It is choosing the supreme emotional strength of being respectfully real instead of dropping a verbal nuke just because venting feels good in the short term. And it's letting the undeniable, fast-approaching reality of death be the ultimate fuel for your daily appreciation of their life.
It strips the concept of love out of the realm of fairy tales and plants it firmly in the realm of daily labor. It is not an event that happens to you. It is a posture you relentlessly execute.
But I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on today, something that builds on this entire concept that turns the lens in a slightly different direction. We just spent this deep dive exploring how this rigid daily discipline of reciting, I love you, I adore you, I cherish you, I respect you, you can theoretically save and deepen a rocky romantic relationship. It protects your partner from your own worst fleeting thoughts. But what would happen if you took that exact same mental potion and directed it inward?
Oh, wow.
What if 3 times a day you applied that strict discipline of grace, respect, and adoration to your relationship with yourself, especially when you're tired, failing, and definitely not feeling the magic?
That is a staggering application of the theory.
Yeah.
Because if we are capable of verbally nuking our partners during a moment of frustration, we are infinitely more skilled at verbally nuking ourselves when we fall short.
Exactly. The magic trick of spontaneous love might be a total myth, but the discipline is real, and it might just be the exact tool you need to fix the engine no matter who you're driving with. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you on the next one.